Hi, my name is Antonia Crane, and I am the author of Spent.
So let's start with the lightning round questions. So, when did you first identify as a writer?
I mean, I'm not sure that I do identify as a writer, but I know that I wanted to be a writer since the third grade when we had to. I went to private Catholic school, which tells you a lot. And they asked that question, what do you want to be when you grow up? And the three things were singer, dancer, writer. And I was afraid to write down writer because I didn't think that I was going to be smart enough.
Oh, yeah. I didn't know anyone else either. Did you know anyone who was a writer?
No, but I loved reading.
Ah, yes.
So yeah,
Were
since
you
I was 9 years old, I was like, oh my God, this is everything. I would just have
Yeah.
books piled up so high. My mom would make me take back two because I couldn't carry all of the books that I wanted to read at our library. And I would
I
have to
think there's
also
some
take
of that in
two.
Spent,
Oh,
right?
is there? Do I talk about that?
I
Yeah.
think you talk about, yeah, going to the library and how much you love to read. What's your all-time favorite book?
That is such an unfair and homophobic question. I can't believe you're, that is such a crazy question. That's such a mean
I know.
spirited.
I do it to torture my guests. So, what's your favorite?
I mean, so like I had to sort of ask myself, what's the book that I actually need to sort of jumpstart my writing? And like there's one that I'm willing to talk about and one that I'm not willing to talk about. So the one that I will say is Dennis Johnson's Jesus' Son,
I don't know
which is
this.
fiction. I'm gonna hold it up for you. It's like this
Oh,
very beautiful collection of short stories, and he is just does things that no one else does.
like what?
He
Is it like form? Is it
it
like
has to
weird
do
structure?
it's hard to explain. It has to do with the whiff of the eternal and how he encapsulates beautiful sadness and just being with druggy people
Mm,
and being haunted and selling metal for heroin. And I'm
mhm.
going to read you the first line of one of the chapters. I'd been staying at the Holiday Inn with my girlfriend, honestly, the most beautiful woman I'd ever known, for 3 days under a phony name, shooting heroin.
Okay.
So that is my favorite. But I mean, I could probably name like seven other books, and like I
But
didn't.
wait, what was the one you can't talk about? Can you
Uh,
hint? Can you give it a little hint?
I will give you a hint, and it's a book that no one knows about. It's a Japanese hostessing book that's
Oh,
so strange and random and nonlinear and fragmented that and it's also about a cult of Japanese hostesses. And my friend said, "You have to read this." And she just gave me the book, and it is my secret weapon. And I pick it up because I'm always looking for books that are not. I mean, I love David Foster Wallace, and he has taught me everything. And I look to him to really talk about dancing and sex work because of how he writes about tennis.
ah,
There's an essay called Tracy Austin Broke My Heart, and it's about his world of tennis and Tracy Austin, the famous tennis player. And the choreography and how he talks about tennis is how I talk about sex work. But I'm always looking for like I want to know how femmes and femme bodies write about sex work, and so I'm constantly looking for that. So I mean, I could give you like 10 other books
oh
that
my God,
are
I love
great.
that. No, we're cheating. We're cheating,
We're
but
cheating.
that was really
Okay.
fun. Okay. What's your dream writing routine?
You mean my nightmare writing routine? My nightmare writing
No, what's
routine
the
is before
fantasy? First, what's the fantasy?
the fantasy would be to sit down every day when I intend to and write for a certain amount of time. Now, what's my real writing routine
Yes.
is that I generally try to do that is I think of writing, which is torture and which is a nightmare. I what I actually accomplish doing is thinking about it like brushing my teeth. So I do set timers. I can do a 90-minute timer, but sometimes I start at 30 and I do it when I'm fresh, which there is no time when I'm fresh anymore at this age. But let's just say generally before 4 in the afternoon is when I'm
Hmm.
freshest to write. So writing when I'm fresh in the morning on timers. Timers make everything possible. Do you use timers?
You know, it's a really good hack that I don't remember often enough. But I feel like when I'm really struggling, that's like the best way to trick myself into being like, listen, bitch, 30 minutes. It's just 30 minutes. That's all you have to do, but you have to start. And that usually gets it going. In reality, or how often are you able to do it like in your desired time before 4?
I mean, I can do it after 4. It's just when I'm at my best and freshest brain wise is probably before that. So after my run in the morning is when I'm best and when I try to do it. And also having an accountability buddy makes
Mm.
things possible. So one of the gifts of the USC PhD program that I'm enrolled in is that
I didn't know that.
yeah, I'm in my second year PhD
Congratulations.
program at USC. Yeah.
Fuck yeah.
It's like the best thing that's ever happened to me, like seriously. So like I have an accountability buddy in the program and they assign them every semester. So there's a certain amount of words and we actually sign contracts with each other. And so I am beholden to another one of my colleagues and we email every day our word count. So that really helps too, because writing is torture. I hate writing. I only like having written, kind of like running. Running feels like punishment, and it is. But I love having run.
Totally, totally. What's one piece of writing that makes you jealous you didn't write it?
Again, such an unfair and mean question. I'm jealous of a lot of writing. I'm jealous of everything. It's such a great motivator. I would say, like some legit beautiful writing that makes me cry and has made me like make it my life's mission to try to reverse engineer it. I would say one of the things is The Fourth State of Matter by Joanne Beard essay.
Mhm.
Another one is The Enduring Romance of the Night Train by Anthony Lane that came out in 2020.
What is
And
it about those?
it's about the pandemic. It's about the pandemic before we knew it was the pandemic.
And like what is it about the way that it's executed that you like love?
Well, I have one more that I have to tell you about since
Okay,
I
yeah,
have
tell me.
questions. Zadie Smith's Some Notes on Attunement, which is sort of on Joni Mitchell, but it's also about music and growing up and what music means in families and what we're exposed to and what we have to kind of go search for in the world and how you can hear something your whole childhood and like even hate that thing. And then when you're 40, you're like, oh my God,
Yes.
oh, I
Oh my
get it.
God. That happens to me all the time lately.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Zadie Smith's Notes on Attunement has made me cry. So there's like 20 more, but because I mean, I hate this question so much and I resent you so much for asking it. The thing that The Fourth State of Matter does by Joanne Beard, and also Vanessa Veselka, The Highway of Lost Girls, does this too. It's also one that I wouldn't say that I'm jealous. I would say that I worship at the altar of it.
Uh,
And it's that it combines, it does this really wrecking of the genre thing where it starts out as an investigative piece that is also a memoir piece. So the Fourth State of Matter does another trick where it's like, oh, I thought we were like talking about your dog that has cancer and your
huh.
husband who like left you, but we're really talking about this shooting that happened in your place of work.
Uh-huh.
And it is so incredible. It breaks all of the rules that happen in kind of writers' workshops at large, where it's like, no, we need a beginning, middle, and end, and we need you to be constricted in this one story, and we need for you to not divert and be this poet of diversion. And I'm like, fuck that. Like, there's a lot of ways that one can storytell, and the Fourth State of Matter, people have like written diagrams to try to understand that essay.
Uh-huh.
I will be studying that essay until the day I die.
What about that second one on your list? What makes
Right.
you
Okay. So
jealous about that one?
The Enduring Romance of the Night Train just made me bawl, and I love Anthony Lane. He's been writing for The New Yorker as a critic, and I guess he's a critic for like since the 90s. And he was writing about taking a trip and being in Europe and kind of like being unafraid, but also rubbing up against the thing that was going to hurt us and going to lock us down before we knew that that's what was happening. And so it had this ominous quality.
Uh,
It also had this beautiful romantic quality of trains. And there's something incredibly magical about trains,
yeah.
metaphorically the way that travel just shut down after that is I have like an emotional response to that essay
Hmm.
because of what happened to all of us collectively. It's also like in every Hitchcock film, the train equals sex. So it has to do with desire and travel and him like looking out the window at the future and at the past at the same time
Oh,
and like
fuck.
what it meant. And it
Mhm.
just makes me bawl. I just sob when I read that essay. I don't even fully understand it,
That's the best feeling though.
but it's grief, it's travel, it's foreboding, it's desire, it's being shut down, it's not understanding what is to be,
Yeah.
and plunging ahead anyway. And I just love Anthony Lane's mind.
I got
Uh,
to do some reading. This is a
yeah,
good list. Thank you.
okay, you're welcome.
Okay, let's talk MFA or what's the beginning of the spent journey? Does it start in the MFA or does it start before?
It starts in the MFA program.
Okay, so tell us how you got there, like why you decided to do it, how you landed at Antioch.
Oh, okay. Nuts and bolts. My mother got diagnosed with cancer in 2004, and I was working at an entertainment law firm and doing bachelor parties on the weekends. Oh, and I was also dating a full-blown junkie who was like in and out of 5 rehabs. So I was like not at my best. And I was applying to the creative nonfiction program at Antioch University, which is a low residency 2-year program. And I got in like 3 times and then I deferred enrollment and I kept not going because my mother's cancer kept coming back.
Mhm.
So it just didn't seem like it just was not the right time. Right. And so, third time that I got into Antioch, I decided I'm just going to go. I'm going to go. And then her cancer, of course, came back and she died a week into the program and I just stayed. So I
Oh fuck.
basically
But
like,
it was one of your her like wishes too, right?
yeah, she was just like, go get that degree,
Yeah.
because it will mean something. And, she comes from a world where opportunities were very limited for like a woman of her small town, but who was also like, my mother was extremely intelligent in a lot of
Mhm.
different ways, also like a community leader in her own right, and like annoyingly talented. Like she painted, she spoke Spanish, she was a paralegal. Like she could everything she cooked amazingly well. Like she was incredibly articulate, she was very well read, she was a straight A student, she was incredibly organized. Like I was like the disorganized, chaotic thorn in my mother's side. But
Did it
anyways,
frustrate you to see her like lack of opportunities?
I mean, I didn't see it until later.
Yeah.
She was a fighter also. I think my mother never got the credit that she was due, but I think that a lot of women could say that.
Mhm.
So anyway, I stayed in the program and I had no choice but to write about her body because I was shocked with it. I
Mhm.
was shocked with her dying body. I couldn't get it out of my mind. And I think that's a very normal thing as someone who like did not seek grief counseling, but someone who very much should have sought grief counseling. Instead, I just like used sex work as my grief counselor and my
Mhm.
life coach and my
And you
sugar
were
daddy.
like there at the end. I mean, you were
Oh yeah, I held her in my arms.
yes.
Yes. Yes, I did. I was with her with her final breaths. It's true.
So you
It's
were
not as
like,
it's not
I
like the
gotta
movies.
write this.
No, I'm saying I didn't have a choice. I was trying to write fiction. My degree is in fiction. I didn't write fiction. All I could write about was my mother's dying body and sex work. It's just what was there. It's what was available to me. I didn't have a choice. I was writing about like drag queens and drugs and like my suicide attempt and like running amok in San Francisco, being a drugged out lesbian punk stripper. I mean, that's true, but I was also like fictionalizing it, and
Mhm.
but I could not write about anything else. It's about what was available to me. And what was available to me was my mother's dying body and the fact that I was hurling my body at strangers and insisting that strangers take care of me and soothe me and pay me.
Well, you say in the acknowledgments, you say this book began years ago as shitty earnest fiction at Antioch's
Yeah,
MFA program. So there was a fictional version. I mean, yeah, because you're talking about San Francisco. So
right.
you had like fiction that you just needed to make nonfiction then?
Yeah, kind of. I was writing about the drug world, being a dyke in the drug world, dating DJs, being the one woman amongst this kind of clan, I would say, or cohort of really stylish gay men. And it was me and like five gay men, and they were cooking meth. And I was kind of like, I was like the fag hag, I guess, the token femme dyke who was just always around. And I could, hoover meth with the best of them.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So I was just sort of like writing about the kind of the cast of characters that were and fictionalizing them, because when you're on drugs, or when I was on drugs anyway, the way that I did drugs, I was up for days. And so what is real in that space? There was no
Uh-huh.
way I could really do a creative nonfiction account of that time. I was really fucking high,
Yeah.
and who knows what I was seeing and feeling. I could only conjure ideas of what was happening around that time,
Mm-hmm.
because I was so in the drug world. I was very entrenched in my addiction. I think Vanessa Vaselka in Highway of Lost Girls really talks about how memory is not a film. It's not accurate. There are other things at play.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, I do have interest in writing a femme drug memoir. I just don't believe in it. Like, I don't buy its bullshit, kind of, in a way, because like
Yeah.
I could try that, but I don't know. I think we might need to call it autofiction,
Yeah.
because I mean, there were a cast of characters in and out of my life. There are things I think happened. There were things that I hallucinated and thought I heard, which weren't really happening.
Yeah, okay, but what winds up happening in Spent is that you cover that period of your life and you make it make sense. It's like grounded and I believe you. So like how did you get to that place where you wrote that part of the story?
I think I pretty much start Spent when I'm already sober. There's very little of it, I think, that
But
happens.
you're talking about even before you left Humboldt, and then you're talking about your time in SF
Mhm.
and, working at the Lusty and the different people you dated and like you're in your addiction in a certain point of it. So like how did you get to the point where like you're like, yes, I've written fictionalized versions of this or auto fiction or whatever. And how
Mhm.
did you get to the point where you were like, okay, now I'm gonna write the nonfiction version? Like, what
I
did
see what
that
you're
look
saying.
like?
I see what you're saying. And also, I want to play with that tension and that line. And like I said, like I don't necessarily buy my own bullshit. Like I believe in pushing the line of genre, and like
Mhm.
I am interested in writing about that. I'm just not sure. And I think there is a way to address it without being totally committed to like this happened. I
Yes.
think there's a time to address it and write about it. And I think Dennis Johnson does that beautifully, actually. And I am interested in that. I think I'm constantly thinking about that.
Mhm.
And so, like, what happened was, I think that actually this is directly to do with recovery. As the fog lifted, if we can call it that, I wanted to be in service of the truth. And I think that to be in service of my understanding of the truth, I had to be like, okay, so here's what's emotionally true. My mother died. I stayed in the program. I hurled my body at strangers, and then this series of events happened. And it's pretty true to actually, there's not a lot of messing with the chronology much. I mean, and there's no composite characters.
Uh-huh.
So I am in of service to the truth. I try to stay very true to like, this happened and pretty much in this order.
Uh-huh.
But I also believe that it's impossible to write a memoir, and that it only encapsulates this certain
Yeah.
moment that I'm interested in. Like when I teach memoir, the first thing I say in class is like, so it's impossible to write a memoir, but we're going to do the impossible anyway. We're going to try to do the impossible anyway. Here are my questionable ideas about truth. Here's the fact that, guess what, Courtney, you've already lived at least 12 lives.
Mhm.
You might want to try one of them and
Mhm.
just call it this container,
Yes.
and then like refer to your childhood maybe a little bit here because it serves this thing that you really want to be writing about. But like it's impossible to write a memoir. But I think that what I was doing is trying to be of service to the truth. The truth is I was bleeding out when my mother died. The truth also is that I was in a program that it was very hard one to get into and stay. And it's also very true the events that unfolded after that in the order in which they're unfolded in the memoir. And then I think there's a little bit of flashback. I think I flash back to childhood. But I mean, there are things that I didn't talk about. There's an entire year I spent in Mumbai, India as a 15-year-old that
Oh.
totally changed my life, which is a whole other memoir, which I have not completed. And I always talk myself out of writing it. But yeah, anyway, does that answer your question sort of?
Yeah. So okay, so you're in Antioch and I've considered going, so I'm very curious, like, what's
Right.
the structure of the program and how did it help you get the first, draft or whatever out?
I'll tell you one thing you don't need to do and go to any program to do, and that is free reading. Read the greats
Mhm.
and read everything below, beside, underneath, in the shadows of the greats too. Maybe read those first and then go back and read the greats, even. So, Antioch made me be accountable to my time and to prioritize reading and writing. And we had to turn in a certain amount of pages. And then we were mentored by amazing, phenomenal writers. So that's what was great about Antioch. What wasn't great about Antioch is it doesn't teach you how to be a working writer. And also
Mm.
that terrain is constantly changing.
Mhm.
But it was great in the sense of it made me deliver pages. It made me look at feedback, respond to the feedback, edit my own work, and it made me read a tremendous amount of literature.
Yeah. Yeah, I always feel so much. I mean, I'm doing that with screenwriting right now. I'm taking this program where like every day we like copy a little bit of a script and like read a little bit of another script and it's crazy how much it makes you just better. Okay, so when does it look like a full draft and like what's your process then? How did you proceed and like how did it wind up like this book that I am holding in my hands today?
You're so cute. I I did everything wrong, and I should say that straight off the bat. I did everything wrong. So, at first I thought it was fiction, and then I was like, no, this is nonfiction. And then I was like, maybe it's a collection of essays. No, it's a memoir. But the useful thing about that is what I learned is that I think Richard Yates is right. Richard Yates, who wrote Revolutionary Road and the Easter Parade, he said that you only have like two stories you're going to tell your entire life.
Yeah.
So there's two stories you have in you, and you're going to tell those stories for the rest of your life. But here's the good news: you're going to massage that material and massage it 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 all these different ways. So that's kind of what I did. Is like I knew I was going to write about getting sober probably, and of course it was going to be about the thrust of sex work, and like it was really important to me to shed light on sex work in a way that was not overly congratulatory or overly romantic and not overly, trauma porn.
Yes.
So I wanted to really like find that, I think I'm always searching for that line.
I thought you walked that line so well. And like
Yeah.
I said, I have a little bit of a lust for sex work too. So I was like, exactly, Antonia.
Thank you. Yeah, like it's people don't I had never read about sex work in a way that felt like it was being framed as an addiction. But I
Yes.
think I think I think it is. Like I think that it's more like gambling where you go in and you hope and you hustle and you try. And that's like gambling. You hit big or you hit small, but you hit something. And I managed to hammer that into like this really stable career for almost 29 years. And I made like a certain amount of money every time I went in. And I
Hmm.
never left without that certain amount of money, and I just did that. I just like, I just like made it fit into my life. And I made it support me. I was just like, these motherfuckers are going to fucking support me.
You became a hustler, but can I tell you? So as I was reading it, as I had like just finished it, and then I got a huge spike in my OnlyFans that I couldn't have predicted or like I sort of knew like I might get some extra traffic from this, but I got a lot of extra and it made me feel like I was like I bet that's what she felt like going in and having like an over $1,000 night and then you're like, "Oh, okay, I'm fucking empowered to like make my next move."
Yeah. And then it's like, okay, now I'm going to have a $2,000 night. Now I'm
Yes,
have,
I get why how it's addictive.
and now I want to have a $1,700 night before 7 p.m.,
Shit.
which as I got older, that became a more fun goal to like, how can I get out of here before 9, and go home instead of be up till 4 in the morning and just like, oh.
So, did you have a full draft when you left the program or no?
No, so I had like 150 pages of kind of like fictiony type of work that I handed in, but I also had like about 100 pages of spent. So I was like constantly like working with this material. And the material that I was more interested in was the material that I was publishing as essays that were spent, were sections of spent, right? I had like a significant amount of pages. I would say 80 to 100 pages of spent when I left Antioch. And then when I realized like a couple years, I mean, like, I guess maybe a year after I left Antioch, that it was, in fact, a memoir. I went around, you want to know the exact nature of my crimes. So I was working at a hand job. I was a hand job whore, and I was working at this hand job parlor, and I was like sending it out to agents. I think I probably had like, I don't know, like 100, maybe 100 pages or like maybe a little more. And I
Mm-hmm.
was sending it out like as a pitch, right? I was pitching and I probably sent it out to like at least 20 agents, and I was sending drafts, and I was getting a lot of nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then that happened for at least a year where I got lukewarm no's or like just flat out no's or no love letters.
Yeah.
I call them rejection love letters. And then I was like, fuck it, I'm just going to finish it. So then I decided like I'm just going to take a year and I'm going to do sex work. I felt this is after my arrest. So then that became a part of the story. And then after the arrest
Uh-huh.
became a part of the story. And I was doing really well in New Orleans. So I decided to go to New Orleans, rent a place in the Treme, and just write and strip because I could support myself. And I had just read Lydia Yuknevich's A Chronology of Water. That book enabled me. I would not have written the last 50 pages of my memoir had I not read Lydia Yuknevich's A Chronology of Water.
Oh,
For some
such a
reason,
good book.
yeah, it was pushing all of the right emotional boundaries for me.
Mm-hmm.
And it was also just sort of this beautiful piece of art that went in all these different areas. And like, she just didn't care about like who she was pleasing and who she was angering. And
No.
this essay is about this thing and this, she was very unconcerned with kind of like where it was supposed to go. And like it was her being on her own side as a writer that made me able to finish Spent. And I did it in New Orleans. I worked through Jazz Fest, and it was like at least a month, and I just was finishing my book, and I finished it. And then I was ready to pitch it again. I was like, okay, I have a manuscript now. Oh, and then I hired, the other thing that Antioch gives you is people who will edit your shit, and they will
Yeah.
edit your shit for the rest of your life. And you will edit their shit for the rest of your life. So I had those incredible people, which are Melissa Chadburn, Seth Fisher, and several other people. And they had been reading my work and giving me feedback for a long time. Even Lydia Yuknevich had a press. Does she still have Chiasmus Press?
I don't think so. I don't know.
She said yes, but I wanted to find somebody local. She was in Portland and she had Chiasmus Press, and she said, yes, we want to publish Spent. But I think I got another yes at the same time from Barnacle Books, Rare Bird, which is here. Actually, it's right down the street. They just moved right down the street in
Yeah,
Hanover.
I love that.
Yeah, so they said yes. And I knew it was going to be like no money, but I knew they were going to turn out a beautiful product. And so I just was like, you know what? I don't have another 2 years to sell this. Like, and they said in the meeting, the people at Rare, they were like, we just really want to support your career. And I was like, that's legit. That is really kind. And like, that means a lot to me. And they had published Oriana Small's Girlvert.
I don't know that
It's
one.
it's a porn. Her name's Oriana Small. I forget what her porn name actually is, but the book is called Girlvert. And like they've been pushing sex worker stories for a while. They are just really ahead of the curve in that way. And I was like, you know what? I'm down with this. And
Cool.
so then it was published by Rare Bird. Oh, and then 2 years later, it became a paperback. And then like 5 years later, a French publisher found me. They stalked me because I was just like, whatever, this is a scam. I don't know. And he was like, no, can you please help me? I'm trying to find Antonia Crane. I really want to translate this book. And then it was translated over the pandemic by Michael at Tusitala, which is a small indie press in France.
Oh,
And
that's
then I was flown
awesome.
to France and like to much acclaim. Like I was like flown out. I was on French TV. I was put up for a week. I was on 6 panels. And then it was picked up again in France. And then it was like staff pick at the Shakespeare and Co., which is my favorite bookstore in the entire world.
Yes, that place is the shit. I
That's my
get
favorite.
also I see how you could crush in Paris,
I
Antonia. You
crush
have
so
a
hard.
very Parisian.
Do I? Maybe
Yes.
it's the shirt. It's the shirt.
Yes, it's the shirt.
It's the shirt and the pussy forward, sack
Yes.
forward. So anyway, yeah, it just they like me in France. They really like me in Paris. They are very intense readers there.
Oh,
They are not like you do not have to perform. They are like, we let's get down. They're like, no, we are going to talk about the most profound underlying things you are scared to talk about. We are going to talk about it right now for an hour, like endlessly. It's the
amazing.
readers, they're very profound readers there. They're very diligent about their feminism.
This is gorgeous. And I feel like
Thank you.
maybe the best review I could possibly, I was like, this is like you are on this page in such a specific way, like knowing you and like then reading this, but I learned a bunch of shit I didn't even know before. But I was like, the voice is like, it's so you. It's so you. And I'm obsessed. I do have a question. I can edit this out if you don't want to answer. Is Adam
I
Mark
mean,
Marin?
yes, you don't have to
Yes.
edit it out. Fuck
I
him.
knew that. I was like, interesting. Okay.
No, no one signed an NDA. It's fine.
Yeah. No, I didn't think you were like you didn't say anything mean about him. I mean,
Oh, but he says mean things about me.
does he?
I mean, he totally humiliated me with his show called Marin. The sex worker episode that's called The Dominatrix is about me.
I didn't watch his show. That son of a bitch.
And I confronted him about it. I told him it really hurt and it really sucked, and I found it really demoralizing.
What'd he say?
He said, that's not surprising. My dad isn't even talking to me right now about how I depicted him. And he said, yeah, but you got to give it to me about the end, right? And I was like, yeah, the end was pretty great. The end of the episode. But it's
Was
hard, we cannibalize each other. Like his cruelty is what has made him big, and that's sad to me.
yeah. Yeah. Okay, so I think this book is awesome. It's
Thank
literally one of my faves.
thank you. I appreciate
Did
that. That
when
means
you
a lot to
finished
me.
it, were you like, ah, I said my piece that I meant to say? Like, did you feel that?
I mean, there's the day your book comes out, and then there's the next day. I felt really great about having completed it because I believe in completion for my own radical self-love.
Uh-huh.
But the thing I didn't know that I would tell my younger self is that you have to surrender it to the world, and you don't know how it's going to play out, and it takes years, and it's going to go have a life of its own now.
Uh-huh.
And you may not understand that right now because it may not make, whatever the best sellers list or hit people's radar, but you don't know what's going to happen in 7 years. And I would never, if I would have told myself, like, you're going to be on a plane to France, you're going to be flown to France, you're going to be on this giant stage, and you're going to be on French TV, and you're going to dine out on this book for like 12 years. Like, I would not have believed it because I was just like, I was kind of stuck in that, like, now what? Like, nothing happened. Like, all I got was this t-shirt or whatever.
Uh-huh.
But like, it has a life of its own. So now I know that, and I'm glad that I finished it, and I'm excited for the next project.
What was the book promotion experience? Like, did you learn anything from that you would do the same or differently?
It was all out of my own pocket, and because of that, I did whatever I wanted,
Mm-hmm.
which was I threw fundraisers. And I had,
Cool.
yeah, so like I threw a fundraiser in San Francisco for Homobiles, which is by Lynn Breedlove, and it's like a driving service that is by, for, and about drag queens
Nice.
and trans women. So I gave all of the proceedings to Homobiles, and so I would just give to a cause, whatever money that I raised, I gave to a cause, and that was really fun. And I also like had a really fun night at Busby's. Is that what it's called?
Oh,
On
a
Wilshire?
performance space like on
Mhm.
Wilshire. Yeah.
Yeah, I had a show there where Moby performed and Natasha Dion performed, and
Oh,
everybody
fun.
gave like everyone was off book and just told a story from their lives. And it was
Amazing.
really fun. And I just threw these really fun events. And the Lusty Ladies came and got a standing ovation in San Francisco. Like I just like decided, you know what, if I'm gonna spend all my own money doing this, I'm gonna just like have fun and like raise a little money, even if it's like $300, $400, and just like raise it for some LGBTQ random business that's struggling right now. So it was really fun.
I love that. Okay, so what's next?
Is this the question about the bucket list writing goals?
Well, yeah, I mean, so you're in this PhD program. Like, are you working on
Oh
like
yeah,
what are you doing now?
I want to write a version of Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, but to stripper femmes in love.
Ooh,
So I'm doing autofiction, and I'm just writing about a lot about work, like how to survive in Los Angeles type stories. And I'm also like having fun with this piece that is all about cults and also about imagining my mother if she were to have an abortion in 1968, and like
uh-huh.
what if she would have made that choice, and what like her life would have been if she would have had more freedoms and kind of made different decisions that were a little more on the wild side. So yeah, I'm doing some like fun, like I guess I would say my mother is in everything I write, but it's I'm doing a little more genre bending.
Interesting. I can't wait to read it. So, is that what's on the bucket list? What's on the bucket list?
Yeah, that's on the bucket list.
I
Is
love
like,
it.
yeah, one or two things coming out of the USC writing that I'm doing.
And how much of that program do you have left?
I'm nearing the end of my second year, and I'm going into my field exams. It's a 5 year fully funded program. I feel
Congratulations.
thank you.
Good for you. I'm so happy for
Dr.
you.
Crane. I'm gonna have a PH double D.
Yes. As God intended. That's amazing. Okay, is there anything we're going to go into the postscript wrap up questions, but is there anything else you want to tell listeners about your writing and publishing experience with Spent?
My only word of advice is be patient with yourself and others. That's my only advice, because I think that there's a misunderstanding about how and when things are supposed to happen.
Mhm.
And the truth is, like, we're waiting for whatever book you put into the world, but it has a life of its own.
Yeah.
So to be patient about it.
Okay, so what's one piece of advice you wish you could give your former self?
That's it.
Just be patient.
Yeah, be patient and keep writing.
It's one tip for writers trying to get a book published.
Be patient and keep writing and read everything.
What do you feel like about small press? Do you feel like that was the way to go?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I can't really rewrite the past or edit what happened. I mean, I think what happened was spent happened. And I think that at the time I was hoping for, to get a little bit of money, which would have been really nice and really helpful. I also think that like the generative work that I've been able to do comes from a fountain of passion and real lived experience
Mhm.
that I needed to have and that I'm having. And I think that you can't replace that. That's something
Mhm.
that you can't pretend about or fake. That's something that has been really vital. I think it's the lifeblood in my writing.
Mhm.
And I'm grateful for what has happened with Spent. I don't feel like I used to feel like a failure and like a lot of jealousy. And of course, I still feel jealousy, but like not in this way of like I'm a failure, which was sort of at the heart of my jealousy, I think, comparing and despairing.
Yeah. But
But
you know what? Whatever. This is an
yeah.
amazing book. So I'm curious, in your acknowledgments, you thank Steve Almond and
Mhm.
Cheryl Strayed and Joey Soloway.
Mhm.
Like, how were those people part of the program, or just you made their acquaintance later? How did they help you on your journey?
I'm getting a feeling that this is about you need to get into this program and to do this program. Cheryl Strayed was a visiting professor and became a friend and a peer and took off and was also my colleague at the Rumpus. So that Cheryl Strayed was a colleague at
Oh,
the Rumpus. Roxanne
amazing.
Gay was also a colleague at the Rumpus. Gina Frangella was a colleague at the Rumpus. Stephen Elliott was a colleague at the Rumpus. So that place was really like fertile soil to really meet a lot of writers and be among them. And there's more that I'm forgetting right now. Cheryl, who did I say? Steve Almond was my professor. Robert Berge was also another professor. Leonard Chang was probably had the most impact on me because he was the strictest.
Uh-huh.
But these writers were really important to me. Dodie Bellamy, these were my professors at Antioch, and they had a huge effect on my writing and my editing and just getting the material, just pounding it into shape.
Yes.
It's like, got to have that input and that push.
What's your all-time favorite piece of your own writing?
I hate this question so much. Like, because, as a writer, like we want to rewrite everything that's ever been published. Like nothing is
Totally.
finished. It's like a painting, but you have to walk away. So I would say one I just chose the one that's really my favorite to read out loud. And it's Your Life as a Middle-Aged Stripper. It's in second person POV, which I've been trained to hate, but I think it really works. And it's in conversation with Lorelei Lee's essay. I believe it's called Once You've Made Porn.
Uh-huh.
It's also in second person POV. And so I think of it as a sister essay to that
Love
because
that.
I'm standing with my sex workers telling these stories. And they're a part of my history, and I'm a part of their history. So it was published on The Establishment, which is no longer, and you can find it on Medium. But yeah, it's called Your Life as a Middle-Aged Stripper.
Ooh, I can't wait to read.
And I think ageism in the industry is it's like an under acknowledged abuse that happens, and it needs to be, marched into the sun a little bit.
Even if you're as hot as Antonia Crane?
Yeah, there's no strip clubs hiring me anytime soon, I'll tell you that.
Stupid. Their mistake. Okay. How can listeners connect with you online?
Pandemicpeepshow.com is where they can find my latest book, which is I made an archival collection of photographs that are of what happened when the pandemic happened is that strippers turned online and they created these incredible artistic theatrical spaces.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them even like became these giant fundraisers. And it really supported and created community among strippers, not just in California, but all across the United States and in the UK and in Berlin and Chicago and everywhere. And it really like made us a closer knit group in a way and really helped us build solidarity. And solidarity during the pandemic was really vital to our survival. And so I wanted to chronicle and celebrate and give homage to the clubs that happened. And so this book is called Pandemic Peep Show, and you can buy it. It's a fundraiser for Strippers United and Trans Defense Fund LA. So it's my photographs. I made the photos on my iPhone, and there's one single actually. There's not many photographs of anyone on a pole. It's more about the sex workers, the strippers, and their intimate moments and their pre work rituals and their voices. So it's interviews, reviews, their voices, and their photos of their rituals. And antoniacrane.com is a good place to find me, and pandemicpeepshow.com is a good place to check out my stuff.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I have so enjoyed this conversation.
I have so enjoyed this conversation too.